Welcome into Higher Living, everybody. What's up, Tommy?
Man, I am doing great. How about you, Lance?
I'm awesome. Best day ever.
Best day ever.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. Again, I see that piece back behind you, the trumpet.
Oh, yeah. That was my first practice piece.
That's cool. No, I love it, man. No, so obviously had you on before, Tommy, with Element Concrete Design, and we didn't know, we met through a mutual friend, and have just stayed in touch. Sending each other articles and videos, and somehow it came up that it was something that I wanted to get into too, and that's psychedelics. And it came up that you've had experience with that too, and I feel that it's important to talk about them. I think there's a lot of bad information about them,
For
and
sure.
just the way our world is right now. I mean, with all the shit going on, and people are so polarized on so many issues. I don't know. I just think it's important that we get into this and talk about it. I mean, I believe in plant medicine much more so than regular medicine. And I'll say this, like, the best way that I could describe psychedelics, at least mushrooms especially, it's going to God. Like, that's one thing for sure. If you've had any doubts about there being something outside of us, something greater than us, like, you do that, you know.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And the interesting thing about it is that the studies that they've done, it shows that it reduces brain activity, right? So it
Yeah.
shuts off.
It actually,
It
yeah, it's not
shuts off
doing.
the default mode network. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not making your brain do more. It's making your brain do less, so that you can actually get a real sense of what the world looks like before your brain filters out some of the other things.
Yeah.
It's I've seen a lot of videos where people discuss and they talk about that they call that experience realer than real. And it is, I
Mhm.
mean, like when you do it,
Yeah.
it's not like this. It's not a hallucinogenic. You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
hallucinate.
Yeah. That's the big
That's a bad
misconception.
term.
You're not going to see dragons and
Yeah,
bats and
all
manta
of that
rays.
stuff. That's propaganda, man. That was
Yeah.
put out because the time that they kind of started coming onto the scene,
Hmm.
we were trying to fight a war,
Hmm.
and people were eating mushrooms, and all of a sudden they realized it's not us and them.
Yeah.
We are all connected. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's so unfortunate that they forced that underground and then just continued to fight a war instead of look into the power of that medicine, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm so glad you brought that up because it is important. And I did a ton of research. I didn't even, I didn't try any psychedelics till probably late 30s. But I
Mm.
felt led to it. And I believe that it will find you. I mean, that's one thing. I went and looked and looked and looked, and the first few times, like, I didn't find real things, like fake mushrooms and stuff like that. I believe that it finds you, but I think that's super important what you said about it actually shutting down part of your brain, and that's essentially what it does. And like, I've been uncomfortable, like, getting into this and recording. Just I don't know why. It's me getting more comfortable with myself, but
Sure.
like Ram Dass is like one of my greatest teachers. I mean, why would I not talk about? Because it's something that really changed me. And the thing about psychedelics is that a lot of people, I don't think, understand. Like, that's not something you're going to be doing a lot. It's not. That's not like something you're going to form a problem with.
Well,
Yeah.
and honestly, Lance, I mean, if you want to call the mushroom a drug,
Hmm.
whatever, um, comparatively speaking, I mean, the benefits that you get out of it compared to legal drugs,
Hmm.
alcohol or tobacco or other things like that, sugar.
Hmm.
I mean, with the mushrooms, they allow you to be self-reflective.
Hmm.
They allow you to really internalize and look into yourself and kind of spot the behaviors that are self-destructive,
Hmm.
ultimately, and then it kind of gives you the opportunity to start new behaviors. I
Hmm.
saw one guy refer to them as, if your thoughts and behaviors were a snowbank
Hmm.
or a hill, and you have kids going down it on sleds and they create these ruts.
Hmm.
And so you might try to start your own, but then you make the rut so deep you get back into that rut and you just can't get out of it. And he said that psychedelics are essentially a way of erasing all of those ruts and making it fresh powder, and then letting you create new habits.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it allows your brain to, other parts of your brain to communicate with parts that it's never been able to communicate with before. It opens new neural pathways. And so it allows you to be more introspective and get rid of bad behaviors and recognize, be more self-aware, which this world needs desperately, desperately.
I mean, it definitely shows you what God is. I mean, you can't look at a tree. You can't, I mean, I've sat in my yard under a tree and like seen it breathing, and you can almost see the oxygen coming down. Like,
For
it's
sure.
like, but you look at a tree and you're like, holy shit, man, this thing's alive. Like, nothing's the same after. I'll say that for sure.
Absolutely. It allows you to see the world
as it is,
for sure. And it makes it a little more novel, which, it just makes things just more interesting. You know what I mean? I remember when I had a mushroom experience and was in Colorado, and man, it was just like the snow had diamonds in it.
Yeah.
It was,
imagine.
I felt like I was sitting in the lap of God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't describe
there's
it.
the words. Exactly. I mean,
not.
I've had other friends ask me, like, to describe it. And I mean, outside of, it's really like, describe blue to me. How would you do that? Like, it's, you can't describe the undescribable. Right. Like, and the thing is, it's different for everyone. And I'll say this, like, I've probably done mushrooms, I don't know, 8-10 times, maybe more. I don't know. But, I've had some of the best times in my life. And I've also, it's put me on the ground, literally. Like, and every time I've done it, I get amazing lessons, not only right afterwards, but even, a week or two, like I keep getting more and more lessons from it. And man, the times that it's got my attention, I needed it. It was when I was still drinking. And I think, is going through that process. Natural medicines what allowed me to move past that,
For sure.
And
the natural medicines are also, they're not toxic.
No, you can't be.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Man,
there's no lethal dose of mushrooms, you know what I mean? Or cannabis.
No. No, and technically anybody, I mean, you could drink too much water and die or whatever. Like, yeah, it's something that has to be respected. I think that is critical. And for people that haven't done it, this is not something you do at a party or like, man, setting is absolutely critical. And the people you're around and their energy is a big deal too.
I'm glad you brought that up, Lance, because I was going to talk about my first trip that I ever had. I was probably 21, and that was 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. So there was no internet. I couldn't really do any research. It was a friend of mine said, "Hey, I've got some acid." I was like, I'll try it. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anybody that had ever taken it before. Mm-hmm. Took 2 hits of acid and went out to a bar, and it was a nightmare, and then went back to Murfreesboro where I was in school and couldn't go to sleep and walked for miles. It was a terrible experience, but it was because I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
For starters, I didn't have any knowledge, which now I've spent a lot of time on YouTube, just educating myself and understanding what it is that's going on when I do this the best that I can based on the evidence that's been proved in science, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's important. Also, the setting was not good. I went out in public in a bar and I was drinking alcohol. I don't think
that's when it got me.
Yeah,
they don't like that.
It's not, if you misuse it and you treat it like a party drug, because I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a specific tool that can be used And if you set an intention when you use it, I think you will benefit from the experience for sure. I quit smoking, as that was one of my intentions when I took the mushrooms. It was to gain understanding, to help improve the relationship with my dad, and to quit smoking. And I got what I asked for. You know what I mean? And so, whereas when I just take it to take it, it was a bad experience. You know what I mean? But I had to be in the right mindset and have an understanding of what's going on and why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And not just do it to get fucked up.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know, like, I think there's such a bad misnomer. And, you know, you see all these shows and intervention and people that, you know, start out some, you know, it's like the gateway shit. Like, man, that's not like, if anybody's looking to escape to something, they're just looking to escape. It doesn't matter what, they'll gobble anything.
Right.
It's not like, you know, we did mushrooms and like, maybe we should try heroin or something. Like, no, like, it just like, and these are, you know, like, these medicines, and they grow in the ground, dude. And the mushroom is like the only plant, I think, that breathes oxygen and expels carbon dioxide. I mean, they grow like that. Like, this has been part of our indigenous cultures for thousands and thousands of years. Who knows how long, you know?
Sure, for sure. Absolutely. And, you know, it's just been lost. And part of that was because I feel like,
fear, man.
They're not there. Yeah. I think it's scary for a large government to have citizens that really question their motives behind things that really need to be questioned. You know what I mean? Instead of being people that just fall in line and be yes men and think that the government is got your best interests in heart. If that's what you think, then we're not living in the same world.
Well, I think that's something too. It's like, you know, like, I don't even know how that came up. Like, we didn't even talk about it before. I don't know how it's came up since then. And but I think that people that have had this experience tend to gravitate and find each other. And I think because it changes one. I think it changes us on a certain level.
Well, it came up when I was shared to you. It was a couple of weeks ago that I'd mentioned to you that I took some LSD.
That's right.
And it had been 25 years, and it was such a great experience, you know, as opposed to the first time, which was a nightmare.
Did you go that long without?
Yeah, I hadn't done it in 25 years.
Okay, I don't think I realized that.
I tried mushrooms a couple times, and or a few times actually, probably 6 times. But then I did the LSD this past couple of weeks ago, and it was wow. It was wow. It was a more intense experience than the mushrooms, as far as with the movement and seeing the trees breathe and the leaves kind of all blur together and all become one, and everything's kind of pulsing. It was really awesome. And just like, wow, man, and just beautiful. And I was inspired to come up and make a bench that I was telling you about earlier, something that I just made for some friends of mine, and had another trip where I was inspired. I've got a table that I'm gonna make, man, and those were the intentions that I set when I took it. It wasn't a large dose. It was just enough to spark creativity. You know, a lot of people are microdosing, and I would say it was close to that size. You know, I mean, it was.
I've never microdosed, but I've heard about that. And
you know, I've been watching stuff, and I there are protocols where some people do it every day, some people do it every 2 day or every other day.
Because psychedelics aren't going to work back-to-back days anyway. You know that, right?
Exactly.
Which, if that doesn't tell you something about the medicine and how it's not going to allow you to develop I mean, if people have never done it, if you take them 2 days in a row, you're not going to trip both days. At least not anywhere near what you would before. Like, it's almost like it's a built-in protection against that.
Exactly. exactly. And nature is intelligent and smart, and so I
We're
feel like that
we're a
probably
part of
will.
nature. Yes, man. I mean, it's gonna it's gonna help pull away the ego, and I think that's something that was huge for Ram Dass. You know, I mean, that's what really woke him up, and he kept chasing that high. And I think a lot of people get caught in that, where they keep going to trip and trying to get higher and higher. And like anything else in life, anything that's going to bring us higher is ultimately going to bring us lower. You know, and I
Right.
think the lessons that I can get, the times that I do it, like you said, if you learn to work with it and set those intentions, man, you can really, I mean, every time, man, like last time I did very small dose mushrooms and, you know, had some visuals, but more than anything, I went in with intentions. I shit you not, like a little over 3 hours later, I was like taking notes, like, bam, the lesson just came in, like, boom, boom, boom. And then a
Yeah.
day later, I was out on a run and it was like, whew, there was another lesson from that. Like to me, it is going to God. It is connecting with ourselves on a different level, connecting with everything on a different level that we just can't, like you said, our brains, the way that we're wired and the way that we see the world, we just tune so much out. I mean, that's the thing, I guess. I'm babbling on this, but like boy, isn't it amazing like what we miss normally?
Oh, for sure. And a lot
Yeah.
of it is just because we're running on autopilot all the time.
Hmm.
And you know, and when you're guys like us, that when you're trying to upgrade your hardware, it's not easy when you've got programming that's been there for 45 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like the psychedelics are a great tool to allow you to really be able to do that.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I think it's just used in moderation. I think if you do that, I think
Hmm.
that it's really a tool that can help you move forward and change the way that you think and see how attached to your ego you've been in the past, and like to take things personally. You know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
if somebody's having a bad day and they take it out on you, I try to remember hurt people hurt people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And not to react and not take it personally. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's something that I've really been able to grow
Hmm.
over these last few years. And I feel like it's a huge help with the psychedelics and the cannabis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that they're both um, are good at that. You know what I mean? I think if I was
You're
using
amazing.
other drugs
Yeah.
like alcohol and Adderall,
Hmm.
I might be in a completely different mindset. You know what I mean? Like always on edge and always looking for somebody to snap on,
Hmm.
because you know what I mean? That's just kind of what those drugs do, as
Especially
opposed to
with the
make you
Adderall,
more
man.
yeah, as opposed to make you more understanding and loving. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I think if we can somehow get rid of the stigma
Yeah.
and just have people quit taking the word of scientists from 50 years ago that would tell you you'll lose your mind if you have a bad trip or whatever. That is nonsense. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's nonsense. It's not real.
Yeah. And you know, like, and that's the thing. Since I'm doing the podcast, I need to get at least, I guess I need to say, I'm not sitting here advocating that this is for everyone. I do feel that the world would be a much better place if more people would have that experience. Man,
I
you go
agree.
back and look at the Good Friday studies. Um, have you read that about that? It was like from the 50s.
No, I have not.
You got to look it up. Look up the Good Friday study. So they basically had like a bunch of divinity students, and this was when they were still allowed to do clinical trials on psilocybin, and they all had a mushroom experience. And these are people, and they went back and interviewed them years later. I don't remember how far or all the details, but to a T, and then now they're like preachers and priests and whatever, clergy. They all said that was the single most life altering spiritual experience of their entire life. I mean, dude, Steve Jobs said the same thing. You're on iPhone right now. Thank God
Yeah,
he ate
right.
acid. Thank God he ate acid DNA,
sure.
man, the double helix, that came from an acid trip. That was discovered on acid trip. I mean, these are
Really?
medicines that have been there for eons. And like I don't, you listen to Rogan. I mean, he's
Oh yeah.
had some fascinating guests on, and even talking about the fact that possibly, in the Bible, like like the Moses and the burning bush, like it's rumored that
Sure.
that's the
Possibly the acacia
acacia
tree with
tree,
the
and then
DMT.
manna from heaven being the mushrooms. Like they don't,
Right.
they woke up and saw it all over the ground. They felt it just fell. They didn't know. We didn't know how mushrooms grew. And
Right.
yeah, people are going to eat things, I mean, that and the symbolism around Christmas is huge in Santa Claus, like the Amanita muscaria, that red
Right.
mushroom,
Yep.
that, and, they grow under, like pine trees and stuff like that. And reindeer eat them, and flying reindeer, like that makes a lot more sense to me than the made up story,
Right. You mean
I
that
mean,
makes more sense than about the guy that flies in a flying sled and goes down
exactly,
the chimney?
exactly. Yeah. And hits every house in the world in one night.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
No,
man.
I agree. I think if it's something that somebody's been thinking about,
Mhm.
I would say do your research
And I did a
before you do
ton.
anything.
Yeah.
Before you do anything, do your research, and then also realize, in my experience, these um, these things tend to magnify your emotions.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm happy and
Mhm.
I'm not anxious when I go into it. So my happiness is magnified. If you're anxious, if you're scared about doing it, I feel like that's only going to be magnified. And that's
Mhm.
why a lot of times people have bad trips,
Mhm.
is because they go into it fearful. And all that happens is that gets magnified, And so if you can control your emotions and make sure you are 100% ready to do it. Don't do it if you're not ready. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you're hesitant, don't
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah.
But wait until you've decided, you've done enough research, and you've prepared yourself
Mhm.
to, one, see the world the way that it really is and be
Mhm.
amazed by the beauty of it,
Mhm.
but also be prepared to be tapped on the shoulder, and when you turn around, see that the stuff you've been sweeping under the rug, now somebody's holding a flashlight and being like, hey,
Yeah.
you still need to deal with this because it hasn't gone away. And that's why I like it,
Yeah.
because it allows me to be a better person. It allows me to course correct and get rid of either stuff that I'm still hanging on to that doesn't
Mhm.
serve me,
Mhm.
or fix bad behaviors.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And like you said, I love that you said that, because it is important in talking about the bad trips. I think and it's to have apprehension, like anyone that's not done it, is going to be apprehensive. You don't know what it
for
is,
sure.
but so that's normal. But yeah, if you're like you said, if you're terrified, if there's anything that doesn't feel right, don't take it. And that's one thing I tell people, because once you swallow it, you're done. You're not
Yeah.
controlled for the next 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Right.
And it's going to take an hour to kick in or so. But, and I think that's another part of bad trips is people trying to fight it, trying to control it.
Yeah.
And
Because
that's
you can't.
ego, man. Cause like, ooh,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, and I mean, yeah, it like you said, like the 3 times it really got me and put me on the ground. Like literally, I've had my best times ever, best times of my life with friends, and laughed like I've never laughed, and
Yeah.
seen amazing things. But the times, man, that I was in a rough place in life and I wasn't being authentic to myself, and I was drinking every fucking day, drinking too much, and drinking like day drinking with a buddy before we did this, and put me on the ground, man. And every time that happened, like I know that was the lesson, and I've been able to move
Right.
past that. But this medicine was telling me that years ago. It was telling me that. There's no
Right.
doubt in my mind. And yeah, man, it's powerful, man. It is. But I don't know where I was going with that point, but I mean, it's helped me move past that. And I think that just talking about it, getting it out there, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. Like
Oh, for sure.
it's like
You
you
know,
said,
I,
it's about getting the word out and like just educating people,
for sure.
and
And
unless
helping
you've
them
done it, you don't know.
understand that it's not it's not what they tell you it is. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there are more and more people that are interested. You see content on Netflix
Mm-hmm.
where they've got Have a Nice Trip, where it's
Mm-hmm.
talk with all the entertainers that talk about their personal experiences on acid or the mushrooms. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
great. You know what I mean? I think it's great that people share their experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody understands that, you can
Uh-oh.
try it. You do it the right way. If you do it the wrong way,
Yeah.
you could still benefit from it,
Hang on, you're locked up.
but you're going to regret the experience for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, cool. You there?
For sure. I think Sting had a great quote there. Probably,
Hold on.
yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool.
So
It
yeah,
kind of
man, I think
it
it's.
froze up
I
for a
think
second.
oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I think with it, it's just gain awareness. Publicly, it's starting to be tested again in clinical trials. You've got stuff on Netflix, so I mean, it's making its way back to the public eye, and I think that all it's going to do is continue to grow. People are going to get more interested, and then hopefully, this society will wake up a little bit and
Yeah.
be a little more self-aware and nicer to each other.
Yeah. 100%,
That's
man. And
that's the goal.
it's going to help you see what you really are. I mean, it really does help me at least, separate from ego. Like, we get caught up and we think that we are our thoughts. We think that we are what we do, like we get attached to this ego role. And when you do that, man, I mean, it's going to force you, like you said, it's going to force you to look at things you haven't wanted to, but
Right.
it's also going to allow you to see that you're not your ego. And I mean, I view nature differently. I view every people differently.
For
It's just
sure.
so much more connected on a connected level. So,
Like, you can't even imagine. If you haven't done it, you just can't imagine.
yeah. And I do think, like having been through the alcohol battle, and I didn't go the traditional, I didn't have, fortunately, I kind of just outgrew mine and dealt with the underlying issues. And mushrooms played a
Right.
big role in helping me do that. But it wasn't like a one-time thing or whatever. That was just my gradual process. But, the guy that started AA, Bill, whatever guy, like he was a big proponent of acid, like, and it, like,
Oh,
man,
for
with
sure.
addiction, like that's the problem, man. There's so many issues. And I'm going to talk about this more and do stuff. There's so much good out there, but there's some hardcore issues and recovery, and there's reasons that people just can't get past it, man. And I think, like a lot of the systems that are out there are set up to keep people stuck, like, and I believe that psychedelics and therapy like that needs to at least be evaluated, man. I mean, have you heard of like iboga?
Oh yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
anything I would want any part of, but like it's got close to a 90% cure rate first time with opiate users.
Yeah.
And what are we doing? People are dropping dead in the streets and getting transferring it to what's the shit they drink?
Oh, the ayahuasca.
No, like the opiate as opposed to doing the opiates, they go weekly and drink the shit. Methadone.
Oh,
Methadone. Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're
Which
talking about.
yeah. So I don't know. I just and I hope that that's something that, and I feel like it will, as things are studied more. I mean, there's just got to be some different alternatives for people.
Well, I think now we're at a point where it's impossible to keep information away from people.
Yeah.
In the past,
Mm-hmm.
it was easy to control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did was, when they realized how powerful psychedelics were,
Mm-hmm.
they instantly outlawed them, and
Mm-hmm.
then figured out their best on how to try to possibly synthesize them and then make it a pill and sell to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the pharmaceutical company that they're the ones that are not interested in selling the cure. You know what I mean? Something that is 100% effective. They would rather give you something that you take monthly for the rest of your life, as opposed to something that you take a couple of times and then you're done. And
I
that's
agree, man.
unfortunate.
I'm grateful and lucky that I don't get sick, and I'm not even on any medicines, like, which is a blessing. But yeah, there's so many people that, and you're right, that's why it's being suppressed. Because I mean, and even in all this pandemic and everything going around, nobody's even talking about advice to be healthier, to live healthier.
Right. How
No,
to boost your
man.
immune system.
Yeah, eat healthy and exercise, and yeah, there's none of that shit. It's all rooted in fear and get your mask and everything else, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's interesting, you know, it really is how I just try to choose how I view the world, you know what I mean? And I don't live in that world. That's not the world I live in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't live in the world where I'm fearful for my life every time I step outside because I'm going to run into somebody that's got COVID or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's nonsense. But I know there are people out there that's their reality.
Well,
And
you
I
can
feel
see
bad
it
for them.
now, man. I mean, you can almost identify, I mean, not saying that everyone that has a mask on is in fear, but in some way they probably are. They're either a fear of being judged for not wearing one or
Right.
what if? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's odd times, man. It's odd
It
times.
is it is odd times to where we're getting separated into the non-mask wearers and the mask wearers.
I know, man. I know. Yeah, but I do feel like you said, man, and there's more and more documentaries. That one on Netflix just came out, and I started, I didn't finish it yet, but I think
Man,
it's
that
just a lot of it.
Reconnect one was great.
Oh yeah, that was from London Real about the ayahuasca.
That was so good, man. That was so good. I want to go down to Peru and
Hmm.
take ayahuasca. And when I realized that Dennis
McKenna.
uh, Dennis McKenna had a place down there, I was like, that's a place that I
Yeah.
would like to go, because I've seen a lot of different videos where people talk about how you need to be careful because you're in a vulnerable state when you take
Hmm.
that medicine. And if
Hmm.
you are with people that have bad intentions,
Hmm.
it's not a good idea. So you definitely want to make sure you're going to a reputable place. And I
Yeah.
totally trust him. I mean, that dude is,
Oh yeah.
he is, he is the guru when it comes to psychedelics and mushrooms and things like that. He knows all about it.
Yeah.
So I 100% trust him, and we'll definitely be trying to take a trip down there at some point. And actually, I've already looked at it online. I did it before I even saw that movie that you
Oh
sent,
wow.
because I'd come across it just because it was something that's been on my radar for a couple of years.
I've definitely felt led to that. And definitely another is DMT, which I haven't done. I've watched a couple people do it. And I mean, that one they say it's like you're gone, man. Like, but
Right.
it's like a 10-minute thing. And
Yep.
but they say you're surrounded by loving beings and stuff like, and sound bad doesn't sound bad to me, man.
I know it's interesting. It makes you curious, you know,
Yeah.
to be like, what is it? And it's interesting to me that a lot of people, most people, have the same experience.
Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's my question is, it's like, so when you do this and everybody's seeing the same thing,
Mhm.
what does that mean? You know what I mean? So is it like, or is everybody going to the same place? Is this opening up another, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Is it a dimension that you're going to, or is it, because it's the same thing with the LSD. You know, I
Mhm.
watched a video of a guy that was recording himself as he was tripping in the woods,
Mhm.
and was talking about how he could see these religious, like, geometric patterns that were overlaid on the entire landscape. I saw that too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so that's like, is that really there? And my brain just filters it out?
Yeah.
Because why am I seeing what he's seeing, and he's on the other side of the country in California, and
Mhm.
I'm in Tennessee, kind of thing? I mean, it's like, I don't, help me understand, what am I doing? Am I looking into another dimension that otherwise I can't see unless my default mode network is cut off?
Yeah.
You know, very possible. There's no way to know, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions now that the testing is going on again, you know, and it's, people are starting to look into it and realize there's something here that we need to look into.
And I love it, man. And uh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, just you describing that and your friend, like, I know what you're talking about. Like I do too. Like I've seen the same thing. And there
Yeah,
are, you know, like it definitely, you know, I've done a lot of research and been reading a lot of Neville Goddard. Have you ever read much of his stuff?
I have not.
Oh, check him out, dude. And he's
Okay.
it's changed the way that I even view the Bible. Like a lot of his is rooted in scripture. He was a big inspiration to Wayne Dyer, but he,
Mm,
you know, it's about the power of intention. And, you know, between that and Greg Braden and a lot of these videos that I've been watching, like, I mean, just dude, our thoughts and our elevated emotions are absolutely everything. But that being said, too, like perception, like what is real, man? You know, like, and after you do psychedelics, like you're like, I don't know. Is how do we know? I mean, it's that thing. If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? I don't. Probably not. You know,
right.
what is a sound? It's just something we interpret. How much of
Right.
this shit's real, man? You know?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It definitely makes you um it makes you question things, and I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? I think at least for me,
Hmm.
I have really just been on a quest of questioning everything.
Yeah.
Just looking for the truth, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not being emotionally attached to any belief system or philosophy or anything, you know what I mean? I If I find something and I like it, I put it in my
Hmm.
pocket and I'm like, yeah, I like that. Like, be nice to people. That's a good one. We'll hang on to that, you
Yeah.
know? Just things that work, I hang on to them, and things that, and I'm trying to come up with my own life philosophy. And part of that is that I want to continually try to grow and get better and, you know, be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday, and to always have the best day ever, and to try to make people smile and have the best day ever too. You know what I mean? It's just, once I realized that I could really take a hold of my life and control it and
Hmm.
really control the experience, as opposed to just hanging out and running on autopilot and being like, God, life sucks.
Hmm.
You know, because that's how it used to be for me.
Hmm.
And it's, I wouldn't recommend it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I'm thankful for where I am, and I'm thankful for the understanding that I've gained. And so much of that is a part of psychedelics. I mean, it
Yeah.
seriously is. It's
And that's something that what you did when you were 21. It was a bad experience, and you went how long? 20 something years without it.
um then I tried
Okay.
mushrooms when I was in my mid 30s,
Okay.
and then
But
I,
the point is, you went a long time without it, right?
oh, a long time, a
Yeah.
long time. I
Yeah.
tried to find it. Mushrooms back when I was in college, getting mushrooms was like trying to find a unicorn,
Yeah.
you know, except that people would tell you, oh no, I know somebody. I was like, I want to try it. I want to try it. I want, never could find them. That's when when the LSD came up, I jumped on it,
Yeah.
regretfully so, but I
Yeah.
learned my lesson. You know what I mean? I learned there was a valuable lesson. It's that setting, and dosage is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. It makes the experience. And if you do it wrong, you won't enjoy it for sure. It's just like alcohol or anything else, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One drink, okay. If you chug a fifth of whiskey, you're gonna regret it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 100%. It's funny you mentioned not being able to find them in college. I went to Auburn and I didn't do any of that shit. I didn't even try weed or anything in college, but people would come down from Brentwood because there was like cows and stuff out there and like go pick
Right.
shrooms. They would drive down from Brentwood to go pick shrooms. Some of the Brentwood high people that were friends
There
of,
you go.
yeah.
That's funny.
But
That's funny.
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think it's something that you have to be led to do. I think it's like you said, very, very important to do your own research and to take it seriously. This is not a shits and giggles drug, you know, like this is serious. This is, I have more respect for that, like more reverence for that experience than, you know, I mean, to me, it's like I said, it's going to God, man. It is ultra important. And
I
I don't know,
agree.
I think it's important to respect the medicine.
I agree. And to um I think when you do it that way, when you view it that way, it helps set the experience for
Hmm.
one. You to, I think, be aware and open to any lessons that come.
Hmm.
You know, I think if you take these things as a party drug
Mhm.
and you're just wanting to goof off, you're missing the point. You know what I mean? You are completely missing the point, and you should just drink a lot if that's what you
And
want to
not
do.
only are you missing the point, you're highly likely to get your ass dropped on the ground or have a really bad trip.
Yeah,
It
it's
I
well,
I
it,
I think it increases
again,
your
it's like
likelihood.
the way that I would compare it is like when I say it's a tool to help work on your sickness and everything. A hammer is a tool too. It's a very psychedelics are the same way. They have
Yeah.
a purpose and a
Mhm.
use,
Mhm.
and I think if you use them the way they were intended, it's the perfect tool. Just like a
100%.
hammer was perfectly made to drive a nail. It's not made to open a window,
Yeah.
right? That's the wrong tool. So it just depends on what it is you're really trying to accomplish. And if you're trying to gain self-awareness
Mhm.
and to better yourself, I think psychedelics are an amazing tool.
And I agree, man. And I'm really excited to see what they do. If as they start to study addiction and recovery and stuff more, man. And I'm going to do some recordings and blogging and stuff about it. But I do think there's some things that really need to be addressed in recovery. I mean, for one, the power of what follows the words "I am," right? Like
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's huge.
it makes me sad for the people that like I see some people like in AA meetings and stuff, and I've been sober for 5 years. What's the first thing they jump up and say? I am an alcoholic. Man, as
Yeah,
long as you're identifying with your problem, as long as you're counting your days since your last fuck up, you're not free, man. It's like a
I agree.
transference. And there's so many good people there. That's why I've also held back. I don't want to be critical because there's a lot of really good people. And like, you know, what it's built on is good, but it's almost like another addiction, man. I've seen people that feel if they don't go to a meeting every day, they're going to relapse. Like, how
Right.
are you free, man? What is that? You're just
Yeah.
transferring to something that's not going to kill you. So I don't know, but I hope that that's something that, I mean, it definitely helped me move past it. And I think that people can really benefit from that. And as long as we, like you said, it's really resetting the salt. It's a hard reset. I mean,
For sure.
it's going, and I think that we all collectively could benefit from that. I mean, I know I have. So
I think the older you get, the more you need it.
yeah.
Honestly, you know what I mean? It's not gonna. I mean, it just allows you to again upgrade your hardware.
Hmm.
Get rid of some thoughts and habits that don't serve you anymore. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It really will help you do that. Where doing it without is really difficult,
Yeah.
and it's to the point where it's hard enough to where people don't do it because it requires daily effort, daily, where
Hmm.
you're watching videos and you're constantly focusing on your thoughts and your thought patterns and your behaviors and I've been doing that. I was
Hmm.
doing that before I did the mushrooms
Hmm.
and before I did the LSD. So I felt like I was already in a great place
Hmm.
and was not at all apprehensive about doing these things because I'd already done a lot of work
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was very, dude, I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was excited, and I wasn't disappointed,
Hmm.
honestly. And so I feel again, I'd done a lot of work. If you don't have the means necessary, I live alone out in the middle of nowhere and was by myself all the time, so I had nothing but time.
Yeah.
And for a while, I drank
Hmm.
way more than I should.
Hmm.
And then I got to a point where I was like, if this is what life is about, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was faced with a really tough decision um, that I never thought I would think about. And so I talked to a friend of mine and, kind of worked through it and learned to let go and just kind of not resist what is.
Yeah.
And then I found the mushrooms, and it's really helped me to kind of work through relationships that have been struggling in the
Hmm.
past, my dad especially. I love him, but we are different people.
Yeah.
And he still very much identifies with his ego. And so
Mm-hmm.
it makes it challenging for me, or it
Mm-hmm.
was in the past, to where I would react
Mm-hmm.
instead of just observe. And I'd get
Mm-hmm.
sucked in, and we'd have this confrontation, and it would just, we'd always leave on a bad note. And I was
Mm-hmm.
tired of doing that. I don't want that kind of relationship with anyone,
Yeah.
especially my father. And so, again, that was one of the intentions I set, and I was rewarded. I was able to step out of myself, look at my dad, and look through his life and imagine that I'm him, and I see the hurt that he's accumulated over the years that he probably never really dealt with, but
Yeah.
just swept it under the rug. And so that's why he is still hurt.
Yeah.
It's because he hasn't dealt with it. And so instead of me lashing out at him, I try to be understanding, and I understand who he is and why he is,
Yeah.
and it's been huge. It really
Awesome,
has.
man. No, that's a great story, man. And that's very true because like you said, I mean, it's working on yourself. And, we get so caught up in trying to resist others, trying to change others, having expectations of others being a certain way. And I
Right.
love what you said there, that it just allowed you to see it in a different way. And it's so true. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. And
And
I've heard,
allowed me to meet him where he was,
yeah,
instead
yeah,
of me drawing a line and say, no, you
yeah.
have to come to me. It allowed me to meet him where he was, and love him for who he is,
Hmm.
and understand that he's not doing it on purpose.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome, man. I was going to ask you one thing that I keep forgetting to ask people,
Go.
that I've noticed. So the times that I've tripped, I've always had a phone, but the phone is like repulsive to me when I'm on mushrooms or whatever. Like, it's so bright, I can't really do much with it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't,
All
and
I,
it,
the
huh?
only thing I do, Lance, is I'll listen to music,
Yeah,
but
not that I'm like trying to text or do a bunch of stuff, but I'm just saying,
for sure.
like you're saying, even doing music or whatever, like it's almost foreign. It's almost like this shouldn't
It
be.
does. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I felt that when I went to Colorado.
Hmm.
But again, I didn't have my phone in my hand, other than I made a video to send to my kids when I
Yeah,
was up on the mountaintop,
yeah,
and just let them know that I was thinking about them and
yeah,
missing them. And but yeah, then I just set up, and I was like, it's like, if you're not surrounded in nature when you do that, you're doing it wrong,
yeah.
because that's how it's intended. Because my first experience was in a bar
Hmm.
with a bunch of people and loud music, and it was a nightmare. It was a
Yeah,
night. I wouldn't do that again if I had the opportunity. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'm not interested in it, because I've done it the right way,
yeah,
and it's the only way, as far as I'm concerned, is to be in nature with
yeah,
friends and set an intention, and let it do its thing, and you will have an amazing experience.
yeah. I agree, man. And yeah, I just wanted to ask on the phone, and not that, like I said, not that when you're in that state, you're not worried about texting stuff. I've just noticed like how it stands out to me, like almost too bright, too much. Like,
For sure.
but think
No, I
about it.
know
Like, I
exactly what
mean,
you
that
mean.
it's all is like, is it like we're not supposed to be walking around with shit in our hands, staring at them all the time?
Right.
That's not how we were designed. So
Right.
I didn't know if you
Yeah.
noticed anything similar, but anyway, man. Well, thank you, dude. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, dude, I enjoyed it for sure. It's something that, honestly, it's something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah,
I think that people would benefit from it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
hmm,
Positively, I think it's a great thing. But again, do your research and make
yeah,
sure that you are mentally prepared for
hmm,
the experience that you're about to have. You know what
hmm,
I mean? And that's the only thing I would tell you, because it's a great one.
hmm,
But once, like you said, once you cross that line, you can't flip a switch and cut it
yeah,
off. It doesn't
no,
work like that. So once you sign up for the experience, you need to understand and just let go and enjoy.
and even if there is resistance, that's what I've learned. Like, when if you feel like something's going wrong, like, trip in a trip, and there's that anxiety or whatever, like, just, you got to realize, like, whether it's like having a ring or something, some object, just to ground yourself, and it's all going to pass, man. I mean,
For sure.
people get in that state and freak out, just remain calm. And I think, like you said, that's why it's so critical to be out in nature with the right people. Yeah, I think that's important.
And another thing that I have learned that works well for me is, especially like when I was doing the acid trip, if I was alone, like say I got away from the group for a minute, I might have some thoughts that come into my head, and
Hmm.
instead of, a lot of them were like, anytime something came in there, I would kind of go towards it. You know what I mean? Like I saw a guy that gave the advice of, if you see stairs, go down them. If you see a door, open it, kind of thing. Like, don't resist. And so I had these thoughts and feelings that came up, and instead of being like, oh gosh, and trying to get it, I went towards it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was like, well, what's this all about? And it's interesting that if you don't run from it and you go towards whatever it is, whether it's a past memory
Hmm.
or something, and you walk towards it, it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And so, and as opposed to running from it and feeling like it's chasing you, that if you're able to stop and just look at it and try to dissect it, and figure out, why is it that I'm afraid of this, and what's the lesson to learn from this, and then leave it behind. You know what I mean? I think that's what they help you do, is
Yeah.
to, you know, go over past traumas or whatever,
Hmm.
go over them honestly, and then leave it in the past and learn from that experience.
Like you said, man, the
So,
rug's going to be pulled, like the things that we block out of our lives and try to avoid. And I love what you said, like, just to go with it. Just go with it. And isn't
you
that
have to.
isn't that a beautiful thing for us in life in general? Like, we're all swimming upstream trying to overcome and resisting here and fighting this and fighting that, man. It's a great advice for tripping in life. Just go with the
Yeah.
flow, go with things. Don't
Yeah.
resist.
Agree. I agree.
Well, awesome, brother. Thank you again for coming on. I've just wanted to kind of open this door, and I think it's important. Do you have any documentaries or books or anything that you would recommend to anyone that might be
Um,
interested?
there's one that I haven't read, but I want to get. It's Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind.
Okay, I
That's an
haven't heard of
audio
that.
book that I want to get. Michael Pollan is an author who he calls himself an
Pollen,
immersive,
like the stuff.
Pollan.
Pollen. Okay, gotcha.
And
Thank you.
he's been on Joe Rogan. He's got a great podcast on there.
Hmm.
He's on London Real, but he's an immersive journalist. And so when he was writing a book about architecture, he built a house. When he was writing a book about food culture, he bought a cow. And so he wrote this book about psychedelics. And so he's like a 60-year-old man that went down this road to
Yeah,
investigate and see what it's all about, and came back with a bunch of positive
that's
stories
awesome.
and experiences. And he's really opening it up to people that otherwise would never be introduced to it, but because they follow him and he's a good journalist,
Hmm.
they read his stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And there's a
but that's
lot of
one book.
journalists. I've seen more and more people that have, come out about that. I think that's another thing that is kind of taboo and people don't talk about it. But more and more people, are talking about that and how it's radically changed their life. I mean, that's one thing, like, no matter what the experience is, like, nothing will ever be the same after. And I think that's the beautiful thing. I think we're at a time in our world. I mean, clearly look around. If we don't change individually and collectively, we're not going to sustain.
Yeah.
And it's time for people to do that work. And these are plant medicines that have been popping up out of the ground for the history of the world, man. And they're not addictive, and nobody's going to die from them. And you're not going to jump off your roof and lose your mind
Right.
forever. And yeah. Are you there?
Yeah. Sorry. My phone was telling me I have 20% battery.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. No, we're wrapping up anyway, but good cue. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. This is fun. And
Dude, I had a
yes.
great time.
So what was that book again by Michael
How to,
Pollan?
how to change your mind.
How, that's good. And that's a great title. I mean, if
Yeah,
more people could be open to changing their mind, it's not about getting everybody to agree. Just be open. We're
yeah,
so closed-minded, man, because that's our ego, and our ego does what? It anything that threatens what we believe, what we have been taught to believe. Anything that threatens that, we push it away. And
for sure.
yeah, that's definitely
Instead of
something.
going towards it.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Upstream or
Yeah.
downstream. So awesome, man. Well, have an awesome day. Best day
You
ever,
know I
man.
will. Best day
Yes,
ever.
sir. All right, brother. Thanks for coming on, man. And thanks to
Definitely,
everyone for
Lance.
tuning in. Like I said before, we're not advocating anything. I just thought it'd be a good discussion. Tommy and I both, had these experiences, and I haven't talked about it. And I wanted to get that narrative out there, and it's definitely something that's altered my life in a very positive way.
For sure. For sure.
And
It's
let
not a
them,
bad thing. It's
yeah,
not something that needs to be scared to be discussed and afraid to be done. You know
yeah,
what I mean? That was the propaganda that was done 50, 60 years ago to
yeah,
try to control people's minds and the way that they think. And the truth is coming out. It's not the devil.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to go to hell if you try it.
Yeah, 100%. No, you quite to the contrary. You're going to God.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. For
thanks,
sure.
thanks for coming on, dude. I really appreciate your
Definitely, man.
time, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah, I just wanted to get this narrative started, and I think it's important. And I've had other people that asked me about it, so I appreciate you sharing your experience with it. And
I'm happy to.
yeah, man. Any other movies or books or anything?
Man, I've spent a lot of time. All I would recommend is if you're curious about it, would be go on YouTube and
Yeah.
either type in, LSD
Mm-hmm.
documentaries, or there's
Mm-hmm.
so much content. I
Yeah.
don't have one specifically.
Perfect.
There's just been a lot of stuff that I've been watching on London Reel, Joe
Mm-hmm.
Rogan. There's so much content out there that you can really educate yourself a lot.
And funny that both of those contents are Joe Rogan and London Real, but they've all had the experience. So
Well, for sure. And those
yeah,
are the people that I want to listen to. I'm not
yeah,
interested in getting information from people that have never done it. They don't know
100%.
what they're talking about.
Yeah,
you know,
yep, no,
you're not
100%,
going to
man.
recommend a restaurant you've never been to.
Correct, man. Well, thanks, brother. I hope you have an awesome
Definitely.
day, man.
For sure.
Love to have you
For
back on
sure.
sometime. You got any other projects you're working on?
I
That
do.
bench, good.
I do. I've got a bench that I'm going to be making for my mom, and
Mm-hmm.
then the table that came to me on the trip. So that's the one
Nice.
that I'm really looking forward to. Is the one that
Send me a picture when that's done.
I will,
Okay,
for sure. Well, you'll see. It'll
awesome.
be on Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and tell everybody, how do they find you on Instagram?
I'm on element_design_ element_concrete_design. Element
Perfect.
concrete design.
All right, cool. I'll
Sorry.
have that in the links too. All right, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Lance.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one, Tommy. Thank you.
All right. See you, buddy.
See you, man.